been asked to reproduce this hardware set for a handrail gate on a Roughwater 36, I believe, or 35. Apparently they're not available anymore, and I'm gonna make a mold and cast them. But first I have to take them apart. Now I have already taken this apart, so it's loose. And if I had a lathe, this part would probably be better to turn on a lathe, but I don't, so I'll cast it. It's got a spring, so that's everything for the latch in. The hinge, I'm gonna have to get this pin out, which means I'm probably gonna have to grind the end off. It looks like it's been peened over a little bit. And then I will spray them with lacquer to protect this beautiful patina. And then I'll make a rubber mold, and we'll make some waxes and then pour some bronzes. I can't tell which direction this hinge pin was driven in from. It may have just been a straight pin and peened over on both sides. So I'm gonna grind both sides flush and then try to get it out. I don't want to do any damage to the hinge. Okay, done. So the first thing I did was to lay the strike piece in a piece of angle and put a spring clamp on it so it wouldn't move. I taped the angle so the glue wouldn't stick to it, and I glued on a little piece of stainless steel rod on this end. That'll let the air get out of the wax mold. And I glued on the original hinge pin on this end, and that is where the wax will go into the mold. And after I'm done, I can just be able to snap these off. They won't damage the original. I'm looking in the end of the two latch parts, and the wall thickness is pretty good. But looking into the hinge parts, they're pretty thin in a couple of spots. So I'm going to build these up with clay. So I'll have a higher percentage of success getting both the wax and the bronze to flow correctly. So I've got the first part of the molds ready to pour. On the hinges, all I did was I took a piece of flooring and cut it out the shape of the hinge and stuck it through the board till it was flush on the inside. And then I sealed it with hot glue. And then on the inside, I sealed it with some clay to make sure it wasn't going to leak. I've built these corners up with clay to make them a little thicker. I made a clay keyway. This will align the rubber, the bottom part to the top part. So when they go together, they'll have an interlocking surface. And then I just made a little wall with a piece of PVC pipe. So the two hinge halves are very similar, both ready to pour. The latch pieces were a little different. The same way in that I cut a hole through the board, slid them in, and glued them in place. but they have this little lip on them for extra strength attaching to the handrail. So I put, it was fairly thin. I wrapped it with several layers of blue tape to make it a little thicker. And I don't know if you can see down in the bottom, I put a little clay keyway. And I needed to build this wall high enough to be able to, the rubber needs to cover this. So on this one I had a piece of Schedule 40 pipe, which wasn't quite big enough in diameter, so I sliced it open and put another little piece and spread it out and put a piece in there. So this one's good. On this part of the latch, I had some more of the Schedule 20, the lightweight stuff, which is easier to work with, but it was too big, so I cut it and overlapped it and glued it in. So that's all good. And on the latch mechanism, I'm going to pour it a little differently. I'm going to use my wax injector. So I've got it laying in a bed of clay, roughly halfway up. I've added this little piece on for the wax to enter into the mold, and I've added this little piece of wire for the wax and the air to leave the mold when it's injected. So I'm going to mix up some rubber and pour these 5 little pieces. I skipped an important step between this rubber pour and the next rubber pour. You have to use lots of separator. Poly's 5200 is, I think, what I used. If you don't, you will never ever get the rubber loose from the original. It sticks like crazy. So I poured the 5 molds yesterday, the first half. Well, actually yesterday afternoon, and it's early the next morning, so they're only like 13 hours old. So they're not totally cured. So I wouldn't try to rip them apart, but I am going to try to get the form off the exterior of these 5 so I can start thinking about how to form the other side. Got a lot of glue on them. We'll have to see how this works. I ended up cutting a little line through the plastic with the hacksaw, and this is letting me peel this part away. Okay, so now I'm going to need to scrape this glue off and push this through. Ended up putting the little boards, the baseboards, in the vise, and taking the hacksaw and cutting them as far as I could from each direction and just breaking them. Luckily it wasn't plywood, it's just that pressed board flooring. It works good for molds because it's very slick. The rubber doesn't stick to it very well, and you can break it. On the latch halves, I spent a little time removing the glue from the bronze part of the latch and trying not to gouge the surface of the bronze and trying not to put the chisel through my hand. But I got it off and then ended up just pushing the whole rubber mold and latch part out of the top of the white PVC plastic. I never did break the board on these. Working on the last one. They have all come off pretty reasonably easy. This hot glue is really not glue, so it peels off without too much of a headache. This is going to come off here, like this, and then it broke where I sawed it part way, and it's free. Holes that go through are a problem because you can't get the rubber mold off of the original. So this slot where the little thumb thing fits, I had to fill with clay. But I left it indented so after the mold is made, it'll be you'll be able to see it. It'll be easy to find it and grind it into the right position. Actually, once the wax is poured, I'll be able to cut it back into the wax and cast it with the slot in place. So I went to Home Depot and bought another stick of pipe to finish these molds. And for some reason, The rubber is bigger than the pipe. I'm pretty sure I bought the same size pipe as I bought last time. And I can squeeze it in there, but it's going to be distorted. So then I'm afraid that when I take the mold out to pour it, the bottom part is going to expand and it won't fit the top part anymore. So I'm gonna heat this PVC pipe up and try to swell it up a little bit so it's not so tight. I mean, I don't mind it being snug, but that's just too tight. So we'll see what happens. Much better. Almost forgot to take videos. Got the little ones poured. All I've done is invert them, put a piece of pipe around the circumference, and I used a little wooden wedgie shaped piece as a pour spout, and with a stick and some hot glue to keep it in place. This one that I've poured, you can't see, but I put 2 vents in it to make sure we didn't get an air bubble at the high spots. Now this one is just a pouring spout and a vent. This one is just a pouring spout. They're just pretty simple. I think they're going to work okay. So the 4 molds are poured, and it's been almost 20 hours, so I'm going to go ahead and see if I can't get them unmolded. So the 2 that had the clamps on them, I think they're going to be easy. I took the clamps off. I'm thinking this should come undone. Let's see. Try not to stick the screwdriver through my hand. Ooh, this stuff tenacious. Okay, and the little pour sprue fell out, and now this needs to separate. Kind of stuck a little bit. Okay. This is a good mold. I don't know about this thing. When I pour, the wax may push it to the side. If it does, I'll cut it off and pour just a solid wax, and then we'll drill the bronze. But it would be nice if it'll stay put. We'll see. And because this is all lumpy and uneven, it'll stay where it's supposed to be. So the little plastic vents pulled out real easy with the pliers, and the little pour funnels pulled out real easy, or pretty much fell out. And now I'm thinking that the whole rubber will push out if I have a way to push on it. Yeah. Okay, so the rubber's out. Bottom half of the mold is out, and the top part of the latch, the hinge, is out. Well, this is working easy. Two pieces fit together. They won't turn, or they, you know, with a little bit of care, they will stay where they're supposed to be. Okay, we have one more here. Boop, falls right out. Bottom part goes up into the hinge, so it's a little tighter to pull out. And all we need to do is pop the hinge out. This one has the knob from the hinge sticking out. It's making it hard to get out. Now I can probably force it out, but I have a lot of trouble to get the wax out, so I'm going to cut it on which side. I'm going to cut this side to loosen it up so I can stretch it easier.